Good evening. Welcome to the ShadowTrader Video Weekly for Sunday, April 7th, 2013. Let's get right into it. Got a lot to cover here. It's kind of a mixed bag here that you'll see in a second. We had a big sell-off on Friday, which was mostly happening in the pre-market, as you can see, because there was this gap down to about here. Very close to this support level here in the S&P, and then the market actually just rallied, right from the open. You can see it obviously much clearer always on the spider because the spider shows the gap better. So here's Friday's action. See, opened low, couldn't make it any lower here, and then just rallied up. So what this has done to the market is it's definitely weakened it a little bit, but it's put us exactly dead on in the middle of the channel. So I drew a midline here in the channel. On continued downside, your target is going to be here, which is currently 1523. And as we've been talking, on more upside, the target is up here at the top of the channel. I don't think we make it to here anytime soon. I think the market does feel like it's struggling a little. My focus next week is going to be basically on these prior highs. If the market can get back to the prior highs, then obviously I think there's going to be a little bit more. If we have sideways action anywhere inside of Friday's range, then I would say that that's a little bit more bearish. And when I get into the profile in a second, you'll see what I mean. It would denote acceptance here at lower prices. Also on the downside, I'm keeping a close eye on these lows here because I'm noting that the lows are relatively equal here, and that's approximately at like 1530. It's 1538 or 1539, and then over here it's like 1542. So let's just call it 1540 in this level. Okay. Now, if you break down the S&P as an index into sectors, and you pay attention to what sectors have actually been rallying this market, it might give us a clue as to whether or not the market actually can go forward more to the upside, or does it want to roll over a bit. So the current rally that we've been seeing here has mostly been driven by big cap type stocks such as healthcare, drugs, and consumer staples. So to that end, if we go DJUSHC, which is the healthcare index, what I like to do is just look at these in relation to their trend channel and just see, whether or not they're overextended or not, and where they could go on the upside or the downside. So notice that healthcare actually rallied right up to the top of its channel and backed off. It still has a ways to go to the downside. I would think it would just be a little bit too parabolic for it to rally from here and go back to the channel. To me, the path of least resistance, even with the reversal off the lows Friday, is that you continue a little bit lower here. So I'm going to be watching that. Drugs is the same thing. The pharmaceuticals have been rallying strongly, and I'll just copy this. Didn't make it anywhere near the top end of the channel because it's way up, but again, they're also in the middle of the channel, and I'll be watching for this area here. And then consumer staple, which is, I'll look at XLP, which is a ETF for consumer staples. Same thing, right? It got very overextended from its trend line, and now has come back in about halfway. So I'm still thinking path of least resistance would be a float down to the trend channel. Okay. All right. Let's take a look at the profile, and then we're also going to get into some trade ideas. Here's our market profile, and this is also showing a little bit of a mixed bag, but there's a couple of things here that I think are interesting in pointing out. Focus on the last 3 days here, which is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Wednesday was a somewhat bearish day where the market, backed off a little bit, and then Thursday was what's known as a balancing day, and it's really just a perfect balancing day. It's got, the shape of the profile is very symmetrical, a little bit of a tail on the top, a little bit of a tail on the bottom, and a very fat body here, very rounded. So it was what's known as a balancing day, and it was pretty bearish because it was a balancing day inside of the prior day's value area. It had an inside day, and notice that value was here on April 2nd, and then it broke away cleanly. This is called a clean break, when there's a separation of where the value areas are without any overlap. This is more not so clean here, where you have, this is value overlapping to down here. And this is like a clean break, so it's a little bit more bearish. So you get a clean break, balancing, and then another clean break. And here's what's interesting about Friday's action is that even though Friday's action was so strong, from the open is like here, and it just fell down a little bit and then started rallying up. what we need to notice here is that value didn't move back up to unchanged up here. Value, where the greatest amount of trade went off, didn't get anywhere near the prior day's value, even though price probed, far up into the prior day's range. So, here where there's kind of spiky action into the close late day, I would say that these were buyers at bad prices. So I would still be thinking that the path of least resistance is lower, and that basically on Monday what I'll be monitoring for is, can value get back into this area at all, or does value develop back into this area here? That would indicate more acceptance at these lower prices, and would tell me that the market wants to slowly grind its way down to the other side of that channel that I was discussing, which would be the the SPX 1520 or around 1523 area. Okay, so that being said, moving down into this 1523 area, I want to also be looking for any other clues that might, tell me that this is possible, or that may be the path of least resistance or not. And one of the clues that I think is happening out there is in the bond market. So there was an incredible move in bonds on Friday, which I think was really, really amazing in that it's almost like the bond market here is much stronger than the stock market is weaker. The general thinking is that money rotates out of equities and goes into bonds, and vice versa. And a lot of people were thinking that this rally that has been happening was something called a great rotation, where money was finally all coming out of treasuries and going into equities. Well, if that's the case, this was the sell-off here recently as the market was rallying into, from bonds, and then they just rallied right back up into range. You can clearly see we have a inverted head and shoulders here, which is a bullish pattern. There's the left shoulder, head, and right shoulder. And off of that pattern, we've rallied like crazy right up in here. So what I'm going to be looking for on the bonds, to be honest with you, is continued strength, because it seems to me like the door is open to the upside, and I'm going to be obviously targeting this area here. That would be the the natural place to be looking, which would be the trend line resistance on a pretty long-term trend going back to last summer. All right, so also as a trade idea, I want to put this out there. If bonds can get themselves up here, it would be nice if they went up here on a really spiky move, like another bearish day on Monday or something, and they just spiked up to this area. I would definitely be looking at a futures trade here short in the 30-year. Okay. Beyond that, I'm also monitoring the action in gold. It was very interesting to me that gold had a very, very big up day on on Friday, when the market tanked a bit. And this could be due to the fact that there's trendline support here, but gold to me is just kind of in a wait and see mode for me. I'm not interested in a trade here, but I do think it's of note, and it's something to pay attention to, that you have a relatively bearish pattern going on here. Here you have lower highs, lower highs, lower high, and you come right down into this support here, and instead of breaking lower, you actually bounce. So over the next few days and weeks, I'm going to be monitoring this closely. And those who follow on the ShadowTrader broadcast and also on the Tasty Trade show know that I made some comments recently saying, if this is a long-term move that's going to translate into something big to the upside, really there's not that much to do unless gold breaks the downtrend, and it still has yet to break the downtrend, right? Remember, this is the high that we had in September of a couple of years ago, and since then, it's just been kind of one big mess going sideways, but it hasn't really gone that much lower. So I was saying that if you're really bullish on, if there is going to be a big move, rather, it's going to start with a break over this line. But I am going to be monitoring closely over the next few days and weeks and see how this develops here. And it may give us more of a clear signal that perhaps price is going to go back to this top line here. And if so, then honestly, I think that could really set up a much larger move, which would take weeks and months to play out. And maybe there's some sort of a panic move in gold that takes it well over 2,000 an ounce. But again, this is all just speculation for now, so something I'm going to be just keeping an eye on. All right. Last piece of information that I want to give you in terms of what is the possibility of what the broad market can do in these mixed signals, and will the move be up or will it be down, is basically the fact that earnings are going to kick off on Monday. So I just wanted to mention that Alcoa is going to report on the 8th. Alcoa is the first Dow component to report. It's always traditionally the official kickoff to earnings season. So, the consensus out there is that a lot of these companies are going to lower guidance. Certainly FedEx is interesting in that regard, is, they already did so, and look, they got punished very badly, and the stock fell, and it has yet to recover. So we'll see if some of these negative forward-looking statements come out from some of these other companies during the earnings season starting next week, and that, I think, would obviously, bring the market closer to that 1522 area, a bit lower. All right, I'm going to wrap it up here with a couple of trade ideas for next week. A couple of things that I'm looking at. I'm currently in a ratio spread in Goog. That train has already pretty much left the station. I talked about it on Twitter and on the Tasty Trade Show, but I do have a a 775 760 ratio spread on, and what you can do with this information, because I think so, it's these strikes here, is the fact that the reason that I have the 775 760 is obviously I like the support here at 765 here, which is also a prior high. So I'm going to be watching this area in Goog for a reversal. I also think there's possible reversal play for a quickie in Amazon. I've drawn the channel here. Notice at the 250 to 246 area, notice that there's going to be some support there. And then I'm also keeping an eye out on a possible short in Chipotle. Chipotle was actually rallying very strongly on Friday. I don't know if there was news or not. I wasn't checking for it, but I did notice that it rallied really strongly. And the channel here in Chipotle is just really, really defined, right? It's just really clean, and it's just working perfectly. You have here establishing the channel, up to the high here twice, again, fallback. So I would think that, what's been working thus far is going to continue to work. So I'm going to be monitoring this. If this stock continues to show relative strength to the market, or for whatever reason keeps rallying up, I'm going to be looking for a short here on Chipotle into the 350 area. They will not report until April 18th, so you would be okay next week doing them, but just be aware that they're going to report on the 18th. So if you're going to do any action in Chipotle, you want to do it before then. All right. So that's it. That's pretty much all I have for this week. Have a good one. On behalf of myself and the entire ShadowTrader team here in beautiful Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, I wish you good trading and good night.